Hello and welcome to WiTCH. I'm Ileana, the founder of the Women in Tech and Cyber Hub. Each month, we come together and have a bit of an interview to put a spotlight on women who are doing incredible things in and around tech and cyber. This month, we are speaking to Lisa. I should say Lisa Ventura MBE, which is quite an amazing thing to say. But welcome, Lisa, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Ah, so I guess we start at the beginning. Tell me a
Hmm.
little about you and what you're doing now, and yeah, let's start with the beginning.
Absolutely. So I'm the founder of Cybersecurity Unity, and that came from the ashes of what was the old UK Cybersecurity Association that I founded quite a few years ago. And the reason for that change and kind of, I guess, rebrand is that I see a lot of great work going on in the cybersecurity industry, but it's all very siloed. And so Cybersecurity Unity exists to try to go some small way to uniting the industry, bringing everybody together, so we can talk about what are the key threats, what are the challenges, what's going on, and all try to help each other by fostering that greater collaboration.
I absolutely love this, and I love when I can get sidetracked at the very beginning because you said it, and I think I've said it before in other interviews about the siloed effect, and I
Mm,
absolutely get that. Whether it's literally what you do in cyber, whether you're red team or blue team or purple, because we love the colors, but you get siloed inside of that. But especially in the UK, I think I've equated it to football teams. It's genuinely, and I don't do a lot of sports, so the analogy is pretty vague, but you kind of get in the know. I am for X area of tech or cyber in the UK. Like I can only be and root for Cheltenham and well, no, I'm not going to work with Manchester. And that type of thing's really frustrating to me because
yeah,
that collaboration, which is quite funny because I think you see it in industry of the individuals in industry want to connect and have that community. It's the industry as a whole
correct.
that doesn't really play with others very nicely, and
Yeah.
I absolutely love what you're doing because it is trying to fight that because, yeah, it's really important. So, now that I've sidetracked us from the start, I guess back to a little bit about you, and
Mm,
for me, this is one that I ask everybody, and I love using the superhero analogy, it's never gonna go away, but like every good superhero, there's an origin story. So, how did you get into
mm.
tech? Kinda what was your journey into the space?
Absolutely. So, believe it or not, before I transitioned into the cybersecurity industry, which was in 2009, I'd spent many years working in the entertainment industry, very, very different to cybersecurity. And I worked for years with Chris Tarrant of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire fame before Jeremy Clarkson took over as the host of the show. And then I got to around about 2009, and having spent many years working with Chris, I'd felt I'd gone about as far as I could with that, and so I was looking to make a change. However, my ex was very high up as an ethical hacker and did a lot of work, government, etc. And he'd worked for Kinetic, and then he was working for another pen testing company, doing a lot of this high profile work that he could never tell me about due to the Official Secrets Act, etc. But I was always really fascinated around the psychology of hacking and the mind of the hacker and why people get, caught out, etc., through his career and his journey. So I get to 2009. He'd put out a software tool in his spare time that scans routers, networks, firewalls, that looks at the configuration files within and produces a detailed report of any vulnerabilities that it finds, essentially cutting down the time of doing manual penetration testing down for what could be a day or two to practically seconds or even minutes. And that product went like absolute wildfire. So I joined the business that we founded to help grow that business. And then in 2012, we separated and subsequently divorced. And I was more upset about coming away from the business than I was about the marriage. Whole of the story. But I knew I wanted to stay within cybersecurity and did exactly that. So I went to work at BT, and I did some work around their Assure cyber product, which is very similar to what my ex had developed. I did some work in terms of cybersecurity awareness and training, and that's something I do a lot of today as well on a consultancy basis. And I've done work with a lot of organizations like Pinsent Mason, Cyborn, Proficio Inc., Boost Technology Group. I've worked as well with the UK Cybersecurity Council, Logistics UK, and I'm currently working with an organisation called Qualitest, as well as the work that I do with Cybersecurity Unity. Then through all that, I did a lot of blogging, a lot of writing, a lot of speaking, both virtual and in person. Released a couple of books as well to help women with their career journeys and focus on those that had non-linear journeys into the industry like I had. And I do a lot of awareness raising as well around bullying and abuse within cybersecurity. I think that's something we've got a real problem with. I've been on the receiving end of it a few times and from some quite surprising people, I have to say. So I do a lot around stress and burnout and supporting those with mental health issues. I'm a mental health first aider. I do a lot in terms of raising awareness of neurodiversity and cybersecurity. I've been diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and borderline personality disorder traits. And I do a lot to support women in the industry, a lot to talk about the cyber skills gap and the gender pay gap that we have in our industry. Again, something I've had firsthand experience of, and again, from a couple of surprising organizations that should know better. So that's been my journey to date. And you know what? I'm not giving up. I absolutely love it. And I love what I do. And I love this industry, despite the bullies that I've, had exposure to. I absolutely live and breathe it.
I absolutely love that. So I actually didn't know that you were not from a technical background. I'm not either,
Right.
and it's half the reason which was founded was to kind of inspire other women, especially I don't want to say later in life because I feel like I'm dating myself and I still have the mentality of a 12-year-old most days, but to be fair, I think I'm finding a lot more that this is really common. We've talked
Mm,
to like Natalie from the Ladies Hacking Society and she
yeah.
came in a bit older and not just it I mean from not right out of school. And I honestly did not realize that you didn't have a tech background because you're I'll be quite honest, one of my idols in tech because, well, I think you're the only person who I can literally who absolutely hands down does more with me. I always joke that if I start going into everything I do, but also because you are neurodiverse, I'm with you. I got a very late
Mm,
ADHD diagnosis. The possibility that I have autism is off the charts. I just haven't wanted to go get that diagnosis yet. I don't feel
mm,
the need to get that diagnosis, but I speaking about it, training about it,
yeah.
it's obvious if you get to know me. But yeah, no, so it's amazing because I know I mean I've read a lot of your posts online
Mm,
and I know what an advocate you are in the space and it's really nice because I think there's a lot of advocates in the space that just pick one thing and I don't blame them, but
mm,
you do so much for literally everyone and it's amazing to see and it really disappoints me that you of all people have been on the end of the gender
yeah.
pay gap, but it's
Mm,
also not surprising because
mm,
most women I'm finding have been,
yeah.
unfortunately, or the bullying or the pay gap, but I think it's because you obviously now have the nice MBE at the end of your
Mm,
name that it's kind of easy to make the really wrong assumption that, that hasn't been the case for you. So,
mm,
thank you for sharing because I think it's really important to understand that and to have people out there who are really willing to talk about it. So that then goes, sticking with the
mm.
superhero theme, to what is your superpower? I make
Oh.
women brag about themselves.
I really don't like to think of, the superpower, phrase or anything like that. I guess I guess for me, if I had to pick something, it's spotting those gaps within our industry and also creating the vehicles to bring communities together. And I'm also a born awareness raiser. And so I guess if I had to pick something in terms of, superpower nature, that excuse me, that would be it. And it doesn't my awareness raising doesn't just go, towards cyber. I'll just give you a very quick example. In 2012, I was involved in a road traffic collision where somebody went into the back of me at junction 7 of the M5, where they changed the layout of the junction, and you didn't know whether you could go straight on or have to stop or whatever. And the person that went into the back of me when they got the car said, "I'm so sorry, I didn't realize that I had to stop, and by the time I saw that you were there waiting to go, and I put the brakes on, it was too late, and I went into you." Went up there the next day, and we saw 4 me and my husband saw 4 similar near misses. So we contacted our local paper. I raised a public meeting about it because I thought if some car gets shunted into that thing that, and another car hits them, that could be a fatality. It was that dangerous. And I had front page headlines on the Worcester News, tempers flare at council meeting, all because I'd started this campaign and things like that. I'd even got on BBC Midlands Today with the head of highways and sort of roasted him over this huge sort of document about the highways and what you can do and can't do when it comes to road layouts and so on. And I got him on live TV over a barrel, but eventually they changed the layout because they realized it was really unsafe. And that's me all over. I love raising awareness of things like that to make a difference. And whether that's cyber, whether that's something like that I did all those years ago, that's what I really love and enjoy doing.
I absolutely love that though, because I mean, I have a similar trait. I probably wouldn't have started WiTCH without it. It's kind of obvious, but I think not everybody needs to be that person, but if
Mm,
someone's willing to take on that challenge, it can be so impactful because likely getting the road layout change absolutely, probably save someone from,
mm,
being seriously injured or killed at that intersection. And
mm,
sometimes it just takes a little bit of time and being incredibly loud and
mhm.
thorough. I love the fact that
Yep.
you're like, "Oh no, I read him to rights." And it's like, because I'm
Yeah.
that same way. It's like, I'm gonna do a deep dive and I will make sure I have every fact. You're
Yep.
not going to get away with it. So no, I absolutely love that story. And I do think it is a superpower. I can understand the hesitation of the
Mm.
usage of that phrase. I will probably eventually think of a better way to ask it, but at the moment, just trying to get people to brag about themselves. So, that coming from, you said you worked in entertainment, so
Mm.
it wasn't that. But what would you have told your younger self if you could go back to, talk to 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old you? What would you have told yourself about what was coming, what you needed to do?
Okay. So I would have absolutely told myself that whatever bullying and whatever abuse you will get in your lifetime, and it won't stop like you think it will when you exit the school gates age 16. I was really naive because I was bullied the moment I walked through the school gates and I was 5 years old. And I was naive to think, as left at age 16, that's it. I'm gonna leave the bullies behind. It surely can't be like this in the real world. Oh my goodness, it was worse than I ever imagined. I had it in college. I had it through my studies. I've had it in the workplace. I've had it from family members. I've had it every which way you can imagine. So I would tell my younger self that whatever bullying and abuse you get in your lifetime, and it will happen right up until you're nearly age 50, which I am a week tomorrow, it is not your fault. It says more about every single one of those bullies and abusers, whether they be in cybersecurity or not, than it ever will about you. And that's the biggest piece of advice because I spent a lifetime blaming myself. It was my fault. I must have done something. I must have said something. I must change. I must adapt. I must do this to avoid getting bullied. No, absolutely no. It says more about those bullies and abusers than it ever will about me.
I think that's really hard to understand. I was 100% one of those kids. I was always taller than everybody in the class. I matured faster than a lot of people. I think my nickname for a good like 5, 10 years was Big Bird because I was tall and had curly hair. And it sounds really harmless, but it did a lot of damage. And I wish I would have told myself the same advice of
Mm,
it's not going to stop, but at some point you're going to understand that it has nothing to do with you. It
yeah,
really has nothing to do with the victim in the bullying situation. You could change everything and that there would still be something. And just embracing yourself is really powerful
yeah.
and it's really hard.
Oh, absolutely. And I've also done a lot of research and something else I'm starting to do a lot of awareness raising of because I've done a lot of research into narcissism and narcissistic personality types. And when I look at every single bully I've had in my life, right down to family members, right down to people in the workplace, at school, they are all very narcissistic personalities. Now, I don't say they have full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, but they certainly exhibit some very strong narcissistic traits. And so I've done talks, I've done blogs, I've done, stuff around that to, really educate people into that, not that personality type, and what, if anything, you can do about it. And unfortunately, I found that the only way is to just disengage completely, pull back, disengage, which is easier said than done, because when they're family members and when they're quite close family members, and you realize that they're extremely narcissistic, that is more difficult than not. So I realize what I'm saying. It sounds easy. It really isn't. But the peace you get, and I just can't tell you, and the relief. It's just, yeah, just great.
Uh, I feel like I could talk with you for quite a while. I mean, only because I resonate with that. My grandmother, who is no longer with us, I didn't talk to for the last 8 years of her life because
Mm,
she was a narcissist, and it is really hard to make that separation, and
mm,
sometimes even in the workplace, it can be harder, especially if it's a
yeah,
person of power in an organization, and unfortunately, I think you see it in the stereotypes of some of the more vocal
yeah,
entrepreneurs as a whole, but also in certain industries more than others, and I'm not saying cyber, but very blanket statements obviously, is that
yeah,
they tend to attract a certain type, and that those traits can go hand in hand with that type. So if you are stuck in a work situation where that can make it so much harder because, you need to make money and you need to make a
yeah,
living, and that's, sometimes can be really difficult. So I think it's really important that those talks happen
mm,
because just knowing that you're not alone sometimes and having a few tips and tools to kind of combat that can be
yeah,
so helpful, especially for people, especially women who are starting out in industry. So, speaking of starting out in industry,
mhm.
what bad advice were you given or do you think is given to people who are coming into cyber, or especially women who are looking to come into cyber, whether they're leaving school or, kind of doing boot camps or coming in later from a self-taught manner?
I think there's a lot, and there's a lot of debate, which I'm sure you know, around the certifications versus non-certifications and the different routes and pathways and so on. So the way I kind of tackle that one is, if I'm asked to, in terms of how to get into the industry and what's the best sort of route to do it. First thing I say is, well, is there a particular area of cyber that you're interested in? And I liken it to the analogy of, so I want to be a doctor. Well, there's so many different specialisms, so many different things that you could do. So narrow it down. What are you interested in? And look at it from that perspective. And actually, I do quite like. There's a tool on the UK Cybersecurity Council's website that is a career mapping tool that takes you through a series of questions. And if you're not sure what area you want to get into, and it'll give you a kind of broad overview of the different areas that you might well be suited to within the cybersecurity industry. So I think, especially the boot camps and the certifications and so on, find the right one that works for you, because there really is no one size fits all when it comes to getting into the industry.
I think it can be very overwhelming. I've
Mm.
been there, done that. I've looked at certifications. I know we kind of want to do a series on it because yeah, when you're thrown out, let alone the acronyms, because yeah. It doesn't make it easy when you're trying to go, "Is this something for me?" So, I actually didn't know about the tool.
Mm.
What's very cheeky is I know our newsletter is going out the day that this is recording, and I have a little toolbox, and it's definitely gonna make this, which is, well before this will actually be published. But what I will make sure to do is also link it in the, information below for the YouTube, as
Mm.
well, or make sure that it's on the links in the transcript that we post on the website. So, staying on it, I don't wanna be so negative, and I promise we will get to some positive. What do you think right now, hand in hand, is industry's biggest challenge? So what specifically cyber, what is cyber's biggest challenge at the moment?
I think the biggest challenge is literally keeping on top of the ever-changing, landscape. There's new threats practically every second, never mind, days or weeks and so on. So there's always something new that we have to keep on top of. And then in addition to that, attracting, not just attracting, but keeping really good, talented individuals in our industry. I think that can also be quite a challenge as well. We've got some absolutely fantastic people in our industry. You know, we should really, you know, nurture those people. And another challenge that I find interestingly is a lot of organizations are still a bit reticent in terms of having people that are neurodivergent in their workforce. And I think that is just such a shame because those that are neurodiverse bring so much to the table, different, you know, insights, different perspectives, and having that different voice. And they can be huge assets. You know, you mentioned yourself about earlier. I don't see it as, you know, being detrimental. I see it as, you know, being a huge almost strength. But it's amazing how many organizations just have those stereotypes as well in terms of what neurodiversity is and so on. And I'm actually on a training course in January to be able to qualify as a neurodiversity trainer to go into those organizations and actually train them about the benefits of having a neurodiverse workforce and how they can support those individuals as well through reasonable adjustments and so on. I think that that's so important. Finally, I think we've got a real image problem in cybersecurity. I am fed up of seeing the padlocks and the hoodies over the computers and so on. And I've actually written about this quite extensively. And I don't know what the answer is at the moment, but we need to try and get past that sort of stereotyped imagery, which can be really off-putting if you're a new person coming into the industry.
I think especially as a woman, so I do a bit on, and I'm actually going to give this talk upcoming about representational harms in AI. And my favorite one is to like go to any image AI and go, create a photorealistic image of someone in cybersecurity. And it's always male. They're
Mhm.
pretty much always white, even if you have some who are, where you can get 4 options, you might get someone who is not as, pale as me. And they're always in all black and a hoodie. And I love going and giving cybersecurity culture talks and making it as neon as possible.
Mhm.
I'm wearing a black t-shirt, but all my blazers are about as bright as possible because I'm with you. I'm a little bit fed up of that kind of stereotyped image. I'm like, there are some people that works for. My partner, 100% is one of those, down to the metal and angry music, like, but that's not everyone. And when
Yeah.
you're talking about trying to get that skills gap, whether it's neurodiversity, whether it's women, embracing that is not the way to go. And I think you're absolutely right about the neurodiversity. My biggest strength come from my
Yeah.
neurodiversity, and I know it. My ability to hyper focus. I'm a general specialist whose knowledge goes deeper than most because I've gotten my knowledge through 4 days of hardly sleeping, and I'm not saying it's healthy, but I've done that
Mhm.
deep dive into. I do a bit of training, and I have like 6 or 7 case studies from tribunals about neurodiversity. 2 of them were given to me. The rest were because, "Oh, no, I need more examples." But it actually gives you a really deep knowledge, but people are scared about what
Yeah.
that means, and a lot of times, it doesn't take a lot to make it a comfortable workplace for everybody, and a lot of times, those changes that you can make to, say, make it comfortable for someone who's neurodiverse are gonna help your team anyways. Yeah, I could talk about that in
Yeah.
depth quite a bit. And it
Okay.
is exciting to see more people getting into the area. I think it's a
Mm.
really hot topic at the moment, and sometimes that can lead to problems with how it is
Yeah.
portrayed, especially in the news. However, I think it's about time we started talking about it, especially from, a women's point of view where we couldn't be diagnosed both ADHD and autistic. I think it was like 2013, which I mean is 10 years ago, but that's still not that long ago in the grand scheme of how long it's been around
Yeah.
to make
Absolutely.
sense. So I'm really happy that you're kind of taking on that mantle too, because
Mm.
I think you're going to do some really great things, and I can't wait to see. So now that we've gone through all the really negatives,
Mhm.
what is something exciting? What makes you like embrace cyber, get up in the morning and feel excited about doing what you do? What's exciting?
I think we've obviously covered a lot of the negative side, but for me, seeing all those new people come in and those new perspectives and so on, and seeing a lot of younger people get excited about cyber and come into the industry, I love that, and I'm getting involved as well in a lot of sort of mentoring for schools and things like that, and I really believe as well, if you can get that education piece right from kind of almost the personal life or the homestead, that will cascade down into the work spaces as well. So one of the things that I use quite a lot in my awareness training is the WhatsApp Bank of Mum and Dad scam. Surprising how many people have been caught out by that one, thinking it is their own kids that are trying to contact them when it isn't, and they've transferred money. So I use that and those real world examples of, if this happened to you, how would it affect you? So to really get them thinking, that knowledge will then cascade down into the workplace as well, I find, and that will really help in terms of those cyber awareness programs and training actually landing and being taken seriously.
And I think it'll get more people involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know about cybersecurity when I was growing up. It wasn't until I was honestly past my education stage where I really actually even started paying attention, where if you're taught what it is and how to do it to protect yourself, you're still getting that base knowledge of, well, if someone can do this, how would I go about doing it? And you start raising those questions while also providing really important kind of education at the same time. So you're protecting, but you're also sparking that intrigue. So I absolutely agree. And I'm
Mm,
really excited to start seeing more and more people get into something that
mm,
I'm really passionate about. I can imagine it's probably pretty similar to you.
yeah.
So, one last question,
Mhm,
and that is,
mm,
what do you recommend? And this very much comes from a knowledge sharing point. So, is there a book that you particularly recommend, a podcast, a website? But is there a bit of knowledge out there that you think everybody should have when it comes to pretty much life itself or anything?
mm.
It can also be cyber.
Absolutely. I mean, just in terms of getting into the industry, we need, so many more people to come in. Have a look at that career mapping tool on the UK Cybersecurity Council site if you've not seen it already, or if you're somebody that's wanting to transition into the industry and you're not sure what area of cyber you want to get into. In terms of books, Dr. Jessica Barker, MBE's Confident Cybersecurity book, absolutely recommend that one, hands down. And there's a lot of great podcasts and things out there to listen to. A new one that's just launched recently that I quite like the look of is Compromising Positions, run by Leanne Potter. So go and check that one out as well. But there's so much really great info out there, great podcasts, books, websites. But those are just a few that I would definitely look at reading and having a listen to.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And we are almost on time. But that being said, is there anything just before we wrap up that we haven't talked about that you really wanted to touch base on, or something that's really important to you
Yeah.
that we haven't actually addressed yet?
Absolutely. So, as you made mention of earlier, I was awarded an MBE in the King's Birthday Honours List in June. I can tell you hands down, my imposter syndrome, oh my goodness. And that is another area that I talk about a lot. I'm actually the co-founder of International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. Takes place every year in April, 13th of April. And myself and my co-founders just really wanted to have a day dedicated to this, to really open up the conversation and try to flip the script on imposter syndrome a bit, because there's a lot around, overcoming it. And, I don't think you ever really truly get over imposter syndrome. I have felt like that throughout my entire life and throughout my entire career, right up to when I received the letter telling me about my MBA, to the point that I was absolutely convinced that it wasn't meant for me at all. It was meant for somebody else entirely, and they got it completely, wrong. So I talk a lot about managing imposter syndrome as opposed to overcoming it, because I think there are things you can do to try and help manage it. For example, I keep a regular journal where I note down all my achievements, no matter whether they're just tiny ones or really big ones. So when my imposter syndrome is really, really bad, I can look back at what I've written and go, No, actually, I did do that. I did do that, and that really helps. So I know that imposter syndrome is quite a thing, just in cyber, but within, all industries and so on. And I think that is something that you can, try and manage so that it's not, quite as debilitating as it could be.
I absolutely love that, and I'm really excited for it next year. I know I missed it this year, but really
Mm.
excited for that actual event next year because I think it's something we've held an event at which I know it affects a lot of people in the industry, not just women. And it is frustrating to watch because I see, like you're one of my idols. So for me, I'm like, "But you shouldn't have it. You're
Mhm.
amazing." But I also then turn around and understand that people can and do think the same thing about me, and I'm like, "Yeah, but no, I'm not that awesome." Not so I immediately go that you shouldn't have imposter syndrome, but I can because my imposter's better. Um, which is definitely not a good thing. And I think you absolutely are right. It's about
Mm.
managing it. It's not you're
Mm.
not gonna wake up one day and go, "Nope, I have ticked whatever box in my brain that says I am worthy of being here," because it is one of those things that keeps moving, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's not going to be something that just goes away. Thank you
absolutely.
so much. I'll definitely put a link to the event if you don't mind
Mm.
down in the
Mhm.
comments so people can see that. Absolutely needs more people to attend, be aware of, get support and knowledge about it too.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. It
Thank
has
you.
been absolutely fabulous. And yeah, so I have to do that really awkward exit now, but thank you so much. Please hit subscribe, follow Lisa, and some of her socials will be in the info area. Make sure you go follow her. I did notice she didn't put any of her information on there about, great knowledge sharing places. So I'll make sure that hers get down there as well. But thank you again. And yeah, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.